crucified, based on Luke 23, John 19, Matthew 27, and Mark 15. For days, excited Jews from all over Palestine have crowded into Jerusalem for the Passover feast. But on Friday morning, the city is greeted with startling news. Jesus of Nazareth is going to be crucified for treason. Jesus is now in the hands of the Roman soldiers, who force him to carry a heavy cross through the streets to a hill called Golgotha, the place of the skull. As Jesus stumbles under the weight of his cross, the streets fill with a strange mixture of spectators and mourners, priests and Pharisees who demand Jesus' death, women weeping for the man who forgave sins and healed the sick, curious onlookers who want only to see the condemned man carry his cross. 2 robbers are sentenced to crucifixion as well. On the way, Jesus falls under the weight of the heavy cross. To keep the ugly procession moving, the Roman officers seize a bystander, Simon of Cyrene.
You, carry the cross for him.
It's about 9 o'clock in the morning when Jesus and the 2 robbers reach Calvary. Soldiers nail the Son of God to a cross between the robbers. Pilate's sign hangs over his head. Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews.
Father, forgive them. They know not what they're doing.
To the Roman soldiers, Jesus is just another criminal. They notice that Jesus has a nice robe.
This robe is seamless. How should we divide it?
It's too good to tear into pieces. Let's gamble for it.
As Jesus' friends stand watching him suffer, curious crowds pass by. Some who want him to die taunt him.
If you're the King of the Jews, come down from the cross. Then we'll believe you.
One of the robbers crucified with Jesus hurls insults at him, too.
If you're the Messiah, save yourself and save us.
Have some respect for God. We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man has done nothing wrong. Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Today, you will be with me in heaven.
Jesus looks down and sees his mother Mary and his friend John at the foot of the cross, watching his agony.
John, take care of my mother.
John takes Mary to his own home and cares for her like his own mother. It is now noon. A strange shadow covers the land. Jesus suffers for 3 hours under the dark sky and then cries out to God,
Father, I put my spirit in your hands.
Jesus dies. At that moment, an earthquake shakes the ground. At the very same moment in Jerusalem,
the veil in the holiest part of the temple is ripped into 2 pieces. What can it mean?
On a hill called Calvary, the Son of God gave his life for the sins of the world. The veil in the temple no longer separates us from the presence of God. Jesus, the Son of God, opened the way to the Father. Outside the city, even the Roman officer in charge of the execution is awed by what happened. Reverently, he looks up at the man who forgave his enemies.
Truly this man was God's son.
A soldier stabs Jesus with a spear to make sure he's dead. The witnesses are filled with grief. They slowly go back to Jerusalem. They've now lost all hope that Jesus was the promised Savior who would deliver them from the Romans. In Jerusalem, Joseph of Arimathea, a secret believer in Jesus, goes to Pilate.
May I have the body of Jesus, so that we may bury it before the Sabbath?
Yes, I'll give orders to the officer in charge.
The Sealed Tomb, based on Matthew 27, John 19, and Luke 24. Reverently, Joseph takes the body of Jesus from the cross. Nicodemus helps Joseph wrap the body in linen cloth and place it in Joseph's garden tomb. The next day, the chief priests and Pharisees go to Pilate.
Jesus said that after 3 days he would rise from the dead. Give the order to your soldiers to seal the tomb. We don't want Jesus' disciples to steal the body and claim that Jesus rose from the dead.
Take the soldiers you need. Set up a guard until after the 3rd day.
So the tomb is sealed with a heavy stone, and Roman soldiers stand guard.
That's the last we'll hear about this man who called himself the Son of God.
On Sunday morning, just outside Jerusalem, guards stand watch outside Jesus' tomb to keep the disciples away. But suddenly the earth shudders violently. An angel of the Lord rolls the stone aside. The soldiers fall to the ground in terror. When the earthquake subsides, they flee back to the city. Later that morning, Mary Magdalene and other friends of Jesus hurry to the tomb. Now that the Sabbath is over, they want to put spices on Jesus' body for a proper burial. They wonder who will help them move the stone. But when they reach the garden,
the tomb! It's open!
Mary runs back to Jerusalem to tell Peter and John that someone has stolen Jesus' body. The other women go in the tomb and find an angel seated there.
Don't be frightened. Jesus is risen. Go tell his disciples.
When Peter and John hear Mary's news, they race to the tomb to see for themselves.
Only his burial clothes are here. What does that mean?
He rose from the dead! He said he would, but we didn't believe him!
By the time Mary returns to the garden, the others have gone. She stands outside the tomb crying. Someone speaks to her.
Why are you crying?
If you have taken Jesus' body, please tell me where you have put it.
Tenderly, Jesus speaks Mary's name. She recognizes his voice now.
Master!
Jesus' friends are not the only ones to hear the news. The guards from the tomb go straight to the priests to tell them what happened. Alarmed, the priests don't want anyone to hear the truth, so they come up with a devious plan.
Here, take this money. Tell people that Jesus' disciples stole his body while all of you were asleep.
While the soldiers spread this lie, Jesus joins 2 of his followers as they are traveling. He keeps them from recognizing him, but he explains to them what the Scriptures said about his own death.
The prophets said that the Christ would have to suffer before he could be the Savior of the world.
He eats with them in Emmaus. When Jesus blesses the bread and hands it to his followers, they suddenly recognize him.
Jesus!
And just as suddenly, Jesus vanishes from their sight.